Hi, and welcome back to Radical Playtime, the podcast by Skateistan. Skateistan is an international award-winning NGO driving a global movement in skateboarding and creative learning. This podcast was started with that ethos in mind, platforming those who have kept play and creativity at the center of their lives in truly radical ways. I'm your guest host, Sam McGuire, and I am a fabulous photographer, and I am joined by Leo Baker, who is an equally fabulous skater, friend, musician, icon, the moment, everything. Hi, Leo. How are you? I miss you. What's going on?
Hi, I'm so good. How are you? It's nice to see you.
You too. I'm good. What's your vibe? What's your mood? Okay, yeah. What have you
Been working on a new project called Tacky Joy Factory. It's a new board company that I'm super excited about. Lots of art getting done, and I'm also working on a video part for that. So skating and yeah, staying in the gym, trying to keep my body as good as I can.
What's the inspiration for Tacky? Like both the name and I know you make a lot of the art, which maybe a lot of people don't know. You're like a really good at basically everything you do. It's a little annoying to be honest, but maybe talk through, like what you're creating, what the inspiration is for Tacky, kind of the name and everything.
Yeah, so I don't know, I like going to flea markets and seeing like old creepy toys. And so it's a mix of that and then also like childhood memorabilia, because I feel like there's like some more deeper rooted stuff there, but it's like a mix of like kind of dark, but like, I don't know, also silly at the same time vibes of like clowns and dolls and crap like that, just to kind of like have a playful vibe. And yeah, it's like the goal is always the same, to like use the resource and platform that I have to like uplift skaters and like really mentor them to like get to the places they're trying to go. So I'm excited for the team we're putting together. Everybody's super driven, and yeah, like it'll be really nice to just work with kids to.
Do you have any like prototypes or anything that the public can see, or is it all
Yeah,
hush, hush, hush?
I have
Yes.
art I can show. So these are some of the first
Whoa.
paintings, and they're like all the paintings I did are like the size of a board. So these are all for board
That looks
graphics.
so good.
Um, and this will be for the first drop next spring. And then yeah, there's some other merch and stuff coming out too, but that's more digital art.
And you did all of this art?
Yeah, I did all these paintings over the last like 2 months.
Whoa. Did you teach yourself? I really didn't even know you could paint. And I mean, I knew you could do all sorts of creative stuff, but I didn't know, because last time I was at your place, I saw that, and a part of me was like, did he do this or did someone else help? And then you were like, oh yeah, I'm just going to paint. And I didn't really know you had it like that. Like
Yeah,
where did you
I've been
learn
painting a
to
long
do
time. Like
that?
I started drawing. I mean, I've been like into creative stuff my whole life. So I was into drawing at a young age and painting. I did a lot of painting in high school with acrylics. I did an oil painting series of like my hands with like dripping paint off of them, but that took too long because of the fact that it was oil and I have too much other stuff going on to like wait for it to dry and then keep going. So that took way too long. So I've reverted back to
Mm.
acrylic painting so then I can actually finish my projects. Um, yeah, and I hadn't painted in a long time since I guess the hand paintings, but yeah, I just like doing it. I don't know, it's fun.
Yeah, what inspired you to do it? Like, I feel like you have more stuff in your life now than ever. Like, what's inspiring you to sort of like create that stuff?
Well, for the brand, and in general, I always feel like something that is like obviously hand done is like way more. It just there's a better feeling to it when you're like looking at it than to like create something graphically and like it just lives in the computer and then gets like printed on something. So the process of like drawing it out, like mapping out what I know the board shape will be, and then like whatever, doing the drawing and then like choosing the colors. It's just like a fun process. And it feels like, I don't know, it's just fulfilling to like sit there and like go through the process of figuring it out, knowing the final piece will be on a skateboard for people to skate. And then
Mm.
there will always be the like physical painting to go with it.
it's like you could just paint boards. I feel like you enjoy sort of having a company and like um doing all that. Yeah, I guess like what keeps you inspired or motivated to have like a board company in, it's definitely like a tough world to do and run all that stuff. I feel like you need to have like a passion for it, if that makes sense. Like
Yeah.
what keeps you sort of inspired and like your passion going for like it's
Well,
clearly a lot of work.
number one inspiration is like the feeling that I don't, just all throughout my skate career, I haven't ever felt like there was like a board company that like really speaks to me. And so I have had board sponsors over the years, but after Glue ended, I was deciding whether I should try to find a board sponsor or like take on this again. And it just felt right because like I wanted to create something that really felt like I could relate to it. And then also maintain the position of being able to like stick my neck out for people, like kids that I want to support, like people that I think are whatever. There's there's like the mentorship aspect of it, and then there's the aspect of it where I get to like really have like an expression of my art, and then there's the aspect of it where it like brings it all home and I can like bring people in and like really do my best for them. So that's really like where the inspiration lies, because I don't want to just like have a board like, well, I'm just like, I can't imagine what I would be doing if I like wasn't doing this. I guess I would just have more free time. I don't know.
Yeah, which yeah, I'm just thinking like what I'm so curious of sort of what advice you would give to someone wanting to like start a board brand. Like what kind of have you learned in the whole process?
Yeah, there's definitely some hurdles for sure in the sense of like the business side of it, like the admin side of it, like having to actually run a business and be the owner of that business is like a big learning curve. But to me, it's worth it because it just puts me in a position where I am able to do the things that I want to do. So for me, like my inspiration, like I just said, is like I would like to mentor kids and like help them get to where they're trying to go now that I'm at a place where I have made it. And I have been through difficult moments in my career where it's like there weren't people like me that I could look to. Like there were people in the industry that definitely like had my back, but they didn't have a lot of pull when it came to like the higher ups. You know what I mean? So if I'm like the person at the table, I can like see myself in like different marginalized groups and stuff and really give my resources to them. So like that to me is like the most important thing. And then it's like needing money. Like with Glue, I had another creative to help me run the business. But with this, I have my friend Alex White, who maybe people listening to this know. Um, she's helping me brand manage it. So she's doing all of the like spreadsheets and like organizing parts of it that like my brain doesn't really comprehend. So having a partner that's like really good at the logistics is important, because two creatives running a business, there is no structure. So that's really challenging.
No, it's
Um,
yeah.
yeah, and then it's just like start small. And also, yeah, a lot of the feedback I'm getting from the art that people are seeing behind the scenes, because nothing's come out yet, but people are like just getting the sense that it's like really like a expression of me, I guess, like my art and like my visual language. And so that's something that I've been developing since I've started doing art. And so like having like a sense of where you're trying to go, like with your art, I think is good, because then you can look back on everything you've made and like, I don't know, you can see a path, which is nice. And I feel like I'm more
Hmm.
confident in that now than ever because of what I like did with Glue and like what I've done with Nike and like just like my history and like graphic design and like art and all that stuff. So now feels like a really good strong time to like put like my art up at the forefront, because I feel like really confident in it. So it's like the development around that is also huge. And I think that goes for a lot of things like creating music and all that kind of stuff. Like what I played when I started is like not really what I'm writing now, but I think that happens for every creative. It's like you just evolve. And so it's nice to have documentation of that through like the physical pieces being done and like, yeah.
Yeah. I like what you said about start small, and maybe we can talk more on like I think that maybe is a part of a creative process in general is like sort of starting small and taking the baby steps and getting bigger. Because I feel like you probably had a similar journey in skating as like I did with photography, where it's like you want everything at once. You know what I mean?
Yeah, totally. Like definitely the baby steps is like huge because number one, it's like we see inspiration, right? And we're like, I want to, like, I played Tony Hawk's Pro Skater, and then I was like, I want to be a pro skater. And then like that was like
And you're like, boom, can that just happen?
yeah, and I'm like, oh, it takes like 25 years for anyone to even care about you.
Yeah.
But no, like I think that like with the baby steps, it always has to come back to doing it for you. And so the reason why I've like been able to skate for so long, despite the fact that like there was like the industry hangups I've had over the years that made me question why I was doing it in the first place, I can always come back to that like inner child who saw skating and like fell in love with it before ever having like, any kind of real language to describe what that feeling was. And so no matter what, I can always like come back to that and know that like this is something that I fell in love with and will continue to do as long as I can. And so with that being part of the fabric of why I do it, you know, there was like the phase of the industry where they wanted me to dress a certain way and do all of this stuff that like made me uncomfortable and ultimately made me super mad when I look back at it. And then dipping out from the industry and like getting a job. But like during that whole time, I was still skating, as people probably have heard me talk about in other interviews. It's just like something that I will never give up. And I think that like by the time people started to really realize that, I don't know, like it was just something in me that wasn't going to break. And so it's the same with me for like with like art and stuff like that. So it's like I'm going to find a way to have these modes of self-expression, and like I happen to be in a really good place right now with like, I don't know, the platform that I've built over the years of like perseverance through things that are like really obviously challenging. And then I think that eventually people, I don't know, like respect that. So to some degree, it's like people are like, no matter what, like this person is like not going to give up. And it's like, regardless of what happens with it, like if my skate career never took off again or again after the second, like, you know, all of the pitfalls I've had, like I would still be skating. And I think that's what people are looking at. Like, this is truly a part of who I am. And so once you're like operating from that space of doing it for yourself, like you can go in any direction and just like figure out the stuff that you like, the stuff that you don't like. But like, what about, is it the same for you? Like with photography?
Yeah. And it's, yeah, I was just thinking of this quote that like haunts me all the time and really annoyed me like in the beginning of my career, but has always proved to be true, is like, I had like a mentor that was like, you know, think of it like the gym, where the fittest people are at the gym, because they enjoy being at the gym. They're not like worried about getting like a huge body and all that sort of stuff. Like they just enjoy the process of being at the gym, and they're just never not going to go to the gym. So I think photography was kind of similar to what you're saying, where it's like, the accolades and like clients and money and whatever, it's all gonna like, you're never gonna have enough money, you're never gonna have enough, you know, it's always gonna be like, I want a bigger campaign, I want like a bigger this, a bigger that. It would always kind of go back to like that gym analogy, where it's like these people that are like doing this enjoy this rhythm of like trying to stay in shape, like the process. So yeah, it very much, and I think it's a part of the whole creative process, is like it's so much sort of like mental work to kind of like stay in it. And if you don't truly enjoy it, I think it will drive you crazy, because, you know, there's not like a rhyme or a reason. There's sort of just like a drive. I think like, and you probably feel this, is like you just make best friends with failure. You know what I mean? And it's tough because like
once you like figure that out, like, because some like with me when I'm trying to figure a trick out or something, this is just the way that I relate with skating now. It's like I'll think about the trick for a long time, or something in my head, like I'll get like a spark where I'm like, I think that like something unlocked, and then I'll go and like just like be with the spot where I'm imagining it happening, but like it's still like a 4-month process to figure out like everything I need to figure out in order to like achieve that. And
Mm-hmm.
that's the part of it that I love. Like landing it
Mm-hmm.
is like obviously like the goal, but you got to love the process of it. No matter what you're doing, it's like music, art, skating,
Yeah.
the gym, any of those things. Like
Yeah.
the like marathon of
Yeah.
it is really, if you're not happy doing that, then it might not be something that you want. So I
Yeah.
definitely,
And sometimes, like I said, like you just have to make friends with failure because like it's the only way. And weirdly, like the gym analogy, it's like you get excited sometimes to fail because there's that saying too where it's like for every yes, there's 10 no's. You know what I mean? And so you're like, okay, every time I fail or I get a no, in my brain, there's like a little mental tally, like, ooh, a yes is coming, or like
mm-hmm.
success is kind of in whatever it is coming. But yeah, I think that sort of mindset is so, and I do think skateboarding like does teach that because you fail way more than you succeed. But like once, you know, it's like every skater has their trick that like people know them for. Like everybody does, whether it's
Mm-hmm.
like they do it all the time, they just look best doing it, but it's like they get there from failing like a bajillion times. You know what I mean? And then you
Yeah.
fail enough and you figure out what works and you're
Yeah.
like,
That like
maybe I'm
first
good
leg
at,
of progress too is super informative because it's like, okay, like when I was learning how to kickflip, I skated
yeah,
for years before I landed the first one, but obsessively outside every day trying to figure out how to do it. And once I did that, it was just like the beginning of like my whole entire life skating because I was like, well, if I can figure that out and then I can put this, it's like you just start to put things together slowly and then you can look back and look at everything you've built and there's just no other way to get there besides like going through the weeds of like, okay, that didn't work and that didn't work, but this kind of worked, so let's do this and take a step forward with that.
was there stuff maybe earlier in your career like trick wise like I've been around so many skaters and the stuff I would hear everyone say it would be funny like and I get it to an extent but like I remember one time we were at this like really cool location and there was this like a perfect trick like it was like someone could ollie over this thing and ride into this bank and the skater was like all I do is ollie over things like into banks and in my head I'm like yeah but like it's beautiful when you do it it's stunning right
Yeah, well, for me it's like I think about, it's like I get it to a certain level with the trick and then I'm able to like flip in, flip out, combine it with manuals. That's sort of like how I like to build off my skating. And then I start to get like, if I do a trick too much, like nose slide is a trick where I'm just like, if I do another nose slide in my life, like I'm gonna be so mad, but it's like I'm gonna have to do it. And then
right
from that point it's like, okay, this video part has like this all like this bag of tricks in it. And then after that that informs me like, okay, I want to like work on my like switch game or like my switch manual game, like tail slides, back sides, whatever, just like mixing it up to the point where I feel like it's a well-rounded thing to look at. But like anytime I go to a spot, I'm like, well, I could nose slide it. And then I'm just like, I can't do any more of that, whatever. I don't know. I just get like irritated. That's like my thing. I'm like, it just feels lazy for me to do that because inside it's like, I think the frustration comes from wanting to like overcome something, a barrier, even though like outside it's like, damn, that was like that looked really good or whatever. People are like, that was like perfect. And I'm like, but it feels like weak to me. And yeah, we all have that. I think like there's probably moments for you where you're like, yeah, it's like a good photograph, but like I know I could push it
oh
and like,
man all the time like
yeah.
I'll see picture like I just like sort of like I'm trying to think. I like on camera flash. I like spontaneous stuff. I like bright things, but it's generally not like super studio, tons of stuff polished. And I'll see stuff that people put out. And sometimes I'm like, I wish I could have like 9 strobes like in a pool doing this and that. And like, you know, it's always subjective. Like, I think it's fun when people kind of have minimal equipment and it looks like really authentic. But yeah, like it's the same as the nose slide when you're like, someone has 10, like there are photographers, like I used to work with Oliver Barton all the time. Like I would be shooting like like lifestyle stuff when he would be shooting skate stuff, and he would have so many strobes, and I would just be
Mhm.
like, what am I doing? You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah,
I'm
that's a
so
killer
dumb.
too of
Like,
inspiration, comparing yourself to other people.
yeah.
I don't know, I just wanted to like put that in the universe because that's something that has like made me not do my craft so often. And then I remember like, but my way of doing it's like once I got through the weeds of like I'm on my own journey with my craft, and this is
Hmm.
what I'm doing, and what other people are doing does not pertain to what I'm doing. Just staying focused there because I'm just like, well, yeah, like I don't skate handrails, and like so and so does, and so I'm never going to be good enough. But I'm just like, that's just not what I'm focused on.
And it was the strangest thing. I remember being like, okay, I like love Oliver to death. Everything he puts out to me, I'm like, oh, it's so beautiful. Like the lighting is so incredible. And like, if only I could do this. And then at a certain point, I was like, I can't because I'm not him. And like, um, I think in my brain, I picked like, okay, maybe I could be like this person that I look up to. And I think it's probably similar to your sort of skate journey where you're like, wait, maybe I just like these two things, but I'm never going to like be them. And maybe like the whole point of everything is like these two are they already exist. So like if you're that or this, then it's nothing new, and it's not like reinventing the wheel, but I think I slowly got more comfortable with like, well, maybe I enjoy an aspect of this and an aspect of this, and that vision can be in the middle, and that's more of like where I am. And probably similar when you kind of accept like yourself and your fate, you're like, I'm just gonna do this, and then weirdly stuff just starts like happening. Do you know what I mean? Like I
Yeah,
would
as
shoot some
soon as
way,
you
and
like
then
align with yourself. Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off there, but like
no,
once
no.
you're aligned with like I'm doing this because this is my vision for it, and nothing else really matters except for like how I choose to progress at my craft, then you start to inspire people, I think. And like
Mm-hmm.
without that like internal like core belief, whatever it is inside of you that's driving you to do it, if you're not acting from that place, it's really hard to like a make progress and b like appreciate the progress you've made because it's like you're doing it's like I feel like it whenever I've done it that way, it's like from an outside source and I'm like, okay, this song sounds good, but like it feels like hollow if I write a song, let's say, or like a random painting, like I don't know, versus something that's
Mm-hmm.
like I feel like there's a part of me inside of it that I'm able to get out. But
Mm-hmm.
yeah.
Yeah. How do you kind of stay on the sunny side of that, like playfully, like inspired? What I like to do is be like extra dramatic. When I get like frustrated or down, I do this thing where I'm like, literally no one's ever gonna hire you again, and like no one likes your pictures, and I'll get like really, really over the top dramatic, and I'll be like, you're terrible. You don't even know how to use a camera. No one even likes you. They just whatever, and I'll dive into this whatever, and then I try to make it like a game. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And try to kind of like keep it playful and try to keep it as much as I can not serious, because it feels at times it can just feel so not life or death, but it can feel like career life or death, where it's like, oh my
Yeah.
God, there's if I mess this moment up right now, is that it? Is everyone gonna be like, wow, that picture was so stupid? And I try to just go, it is dumb because it's all whatever, if that makes any sense. How
Yeah,
do
no, it does
you
for sure. Like for me, I think I'm in the same boat as you. I think that's probably why we get along so well. Like at times in my life, I think back when I was like I would like lose my mind trying to like learn how to do tricks in my front yard and I'm like a kid. It's like I look back on that and I'm like, why was I so intense? Like what got me to that point to where it's like I'm so like so angry. Like that was like a really intense time in my life.
mm,
The way that I think about things now is like if I ever get too like hung up on something, I just like remember that like if I zoom out far enough, like I'm a little speck that's like floating on a rock in space. And I'm like, I'm alive right now and I'm skating and I'm able to do that and pursue it. And if I don't land this trick right now, like it doesn't matter because not figuring it out today is progress. Like no matter what's going on. And so that helps me be at peace with like how each day unfolds, whether it's like I'm focusing on skating or like art. There's always like something to get out of it. And I'm like, at the end of the day, it's like, I get to do this. So let it be what
Yeah,
it
it
is.
was the same.
Yeah.
Like there was a library at the school I went to that was open like really, really late. And I would be like, oh my God, I have to figure out how to use this strobe because I can't be a photographer in Iowa. Like I need to move and like do 8 million things at once. And I would like take a photo that day. I would get it processed, like rush process it, you know, and then go to the scanner and scan it. And it would just be like the worst picture. And it would be like, so you're feeling chaotic because you're like doing so much, you know, in your head. And then I just remember like laughing, like almost in tears of like frustration and just be like, well, like I learned how to Photoshop out like a lot of bad things today. Like I'm getting good at Photoshop. Like I'm not a good photographer at all, but I'm recognizing how bad I am, which is in some strange way processed. You know what I mean?
Yeah, for sure. You know, like
And
I like getting to those moments, the humbling moments where you're like, okay, this is where I'm at. Like I was just injured
yeah,
recently. Like I'm coming off an ankle injury and like going to the gym and being like, okay, like I still can't like jump yet. But like a younger part of me, a younger version of me would have been so frustrated at that. Cause I remember whenever I'd get injured, I was just like going insane because I couldn't skate.
mm-hmm,
And like
mm-hmm,
that obviously wasn't doing anything. That wasn't like helping anything. And so now it's like, I like when I first stepped on my skateboard after this ankle roll, I was like, okay, I'm gonna go like roll around at Cooper and like see what's up. And like I couldn't really ollie up the box that good, and like I was like, all right, that's like this is where I'm at right now. And then the next time I went to skate, I was like, okay, I still can't pop good, but like I can pop good switch. And then I just started working with that, and then I was like, oh, I learned switch tail slides. Like that's huge. I was like really excited about that. Now I'm like so hungry to do switch tail slides, which
right,
I guess if you think about it, is still a nose slide.
right. Yeah.
But
I mean, you're always, it's just calling you. It's a
I
switch
know
ollie into no slide.
I was still like really proud of myself, like figuring, like just accepting what's not working and then working with what I have and just seeing where that takes me and not having this like,
Yeah,
that's another part, just this huge end goal where you're like, if I don't get to that, I'm gonna like feel like a failure. Where now it's like people be like, oh, what trick are you working on? And I'm like, I'm just here to warm up and like see where that takes me.
right.
And that's always such
Yeah,
a better experience skating because I'm like, I have no expectation and I'm just gonna like see what happens. And then something nice always comes of that.
yeah. I always, and I don't know how to like word this. It helped me to, and maybe it's a bit of pride or I don't know the word, but I was always like, I was big on milestones of like, okay, the time there wasn't a lot of like Midwest people that were like, um, you know, there's amazing photographers like from the Midwest. And I think I was like, I want to like, I'm over, you know, I'm getting frustrated with things, but there hasn't been like a lot of coverage from the Midwest. So I think it was kind of one of these milestones of like, I want to show them like that they're not letting us like sit at the table because like we're farm kids or whatever it is, you know. And it was like this frustrating, like, okay, I'm gonna like make them listen and then I'll be done because I don't care anymore. You know what I mean? It's like kind of a middle finger, like I made you listen, now I don't need you. And then like I did that. And then it was always funny because I would like hit these milestones and be like, I'm over it. Like I don't want to deal with this anymore. And then I would hit the milestone and like different stuff would happen. And then it would kind of ebb and flow. And then there would be like another milestone of like, well, there's no queer people anywhere. And then the next milestone's like, well, I'm going to show them like there needs to be like a queer person. And that was a much longer milestone. You know what I mean? But it was kind of like, did that drive you at all? This like, I don't know the word even, but it was like, I want people to know about Iowa and I want there to be like an Iowan at the table when most people have
Mm-hmm.
no clue where it's at. And I don't know what that drive is, but did anything like that sort of influence you? Because it also became a little intoxicating where you're like, yeah, there needs to be like a queer person at this table. There needs to be these like people that I'm not seeing. And it's not like I wanted it to be me, like me, all the attention, but it became
Yeah.
this thing of like, I want to like break this wall down and then I can walk away. I kind of want to like make some noise and like disrupt the whole thing because it's just like, where is stuff? And I kind of thought it was like funny a little bit to like ruffle that up, if that makes sense.
Yeah, totally. For me, it was, I think it came in reverse because when I started skating, I was just a kid. And then I didn't understand a lot of like the politics and like the injustices that go on around different identities and things like that until much later. And so as I became more aware of those things, it was just kind of like this natural instinct to like talk about it. It wasn't like people like handed me this torch because of like having talked about it or being one of the first people to talk about it. For example, like, I mean, I wasn't the first person to talk about the pay discrepancy in like women's skateboard competitions, but like I said something about it once in the context of a street league competition, and like
Right.
that caught a lot of wind. And I was like, now I'm the spokesperson. Like I'm just like, these people asked me what my experience was like, and then I was honest about it. And I
Right.
just said that because that's naturally what I was thinking. So for me, it's like those moments of like shift come from this like lack of filter and more just being like, I think this is what I think and feel about it. And then people are like, get like really
Mm.
invested in that. Um, and then I get, you know, this label on me that I'm like, women's rights activist. And I'm like, well, yeah, I do care about those things, but I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I just said one thing in an interview, you know?
Totally.
But
Yeah.
like, then, you know, that snowballed into so many things. I'm like in consult meetings being like, with like companies are like, well, what could we do differently? I'm like, you could diversify your table inside within who's making decisions, and therefore it will be a more fair game for everybody. But until that
Mm-hmm.
happens, we're not going to see that much stuff. So like, I'm never like afraid to say what I'm thinking when it comes to those things. But like at this point, there's like a huge era of like all of this activism going on, and it's still going on. But right now I'm just like, man, like not to be all privileged. I'm just like, I should skate. Like I'm definitely on the
Mm-hmm.
ground. Whenever I get the opportunity to say something, I definitely do.
I mean, I feel like it was a while ago. It was like 10 years ago, maybe now, when I came out and I was like, I think it's easy to remember like what you did, but it's hard to remember like the emotions, if that makes sense. Like it's easy to be like, oh yeah, I just did it and blah, blah, blah. But now I look back and I'm like, I think like I just didn't want to be, I wasn't really like that out. And I knew of like some gay bars and like I'd had a boyfriend, but I hadn't really navigated like life out of the closet. And then I remember coming out and I was dating someone and I just thought like, oh, I really don't want to be in the closet again when dating somebody. And this interview like presented itself, but I remember it happening and then it kind of like, whatever, it just happened. And then probably maybe similar where you're like, I was having meetings and people were like talking to me and I was like, I don't know like this world at all. Like I'm barely out. Like I know that I'm like, I have a boyfriend and I know where like the Abbey is and I know where like the Eagle is, and I know Pride like generally exists because I went to it once, but I don't know much. Like admittedly, like I didn't know history. I didn't know anything. And so like
Yeah,
it
I'm
was
in the phase of
interesting to
I'm
like,
learning so much like all the time. Like I don't know
yeah,
shit,
and
and part of that is being in the closet. It's like
totally.
afraid to even like you're like I don't know what to do with any of that shit. But anyway,
Yeah, and you don't want to know because you're like, no, 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 no. I'm not ready to like hear this stuff because I'm wrestling with it. But it was so interesting because same, like there would be all these clients I wanted to work with that would like, hey, we want to have a meeting with you. We want to talk. And like they would kind of talk about that stuff. And I would just be like, I also have the same questions that you have. You know what I mean? Like I'm
sure.
not
Oh my god,
sure,
yeah,
but like now that I've kind of done this, I would love to. It was funny, and I feel like maybe similar for you, where it was like I want to see a room where there's people that we can make like queer jokes and whatever, but like I don't know if I'm the spokesperson, but I guess like when we first met, um, you had just won Street League. And I always wondered this because, like, you won Street League. And I remember you telling me that you'd like bought a pair of shoes to skate in the shoes because, like, people wouldn't give you shoes or something like that. And then you won. What, like, it felt at that time when I met you, there was so much like I don't know if friction is the word, but there was so much like resistance and you were doing like so much it very much felt like the universe was like, no, you're not getting sponsored. And you were like, well, I'll go buy the shoes and make you listen. Like what kept you inspired to do that? Cause I feel like that would be such a frustrating and like disheartening moment. Like, how did you wake up and be like,
sure. There was like many, cause I was, okay. So like to be not taken seriously for that long is infuriating, but it's like, at the end of the day, it's like, I'm going to go buy the shoes because these are what I know to work. This is what I skate in. And so like, I want to like support myself the best I can so that I can do well. And then, yeah, in retrospect, I'm like, that was insane.
totally.
Like the hoops like, that I had to jump through where it's just like crazy to like get to where I'm at now.
Yeah, but also like what drove you to jump through the hoops? Like, because it would be so deflating to do that, but then you went and did it. What kind
honestly, of like this depressing thing of like, I will do anything for you to see me. And that's deeper than just skating. It's like this childhood rooted, like I need to be seen. I'm dying to be seen by anyone, validated. And I'm like, is this good enough? Is this good enough? Is this good enough? Like, and no, none of it was good enough. And then accepting that and then actually getting seen by other people, you know, like there was other calls that came in during that period where they're like, oh, we're down to like send you shoes and like give you a small paycheck. And so then that's how that built. And I ended up with Nike, which I'm like exponentially grateful for because
but that's so funny because I had a similar
and cared about, you know, that where I'm at now would have never happened if I was like stuck on that, like trying to get something that was never going to happen. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I mean, that's kind of the back to like making friends with failure is like, I had the same, I really, really desperately wanted this magazine to like hire me. And I just did like everything, you know, and it was like, see me, like this. And then there's that sort of devastating moment that you're like, they're never going to see me that way, you know, not like everyone, but it was just like certain people were not gonna, I wasn't going to get hired on, you know, and you kind of are like, oh my God, this is so heartbreaking because whatever it is that the giant lofty goal you have is like in front of you, like, no, you know what I mean? But it weirdly, without that, you wouldn't have pivoted to or whatever it is, you know, it's like this strange thing where you're like, all right, this magazine won't hire me. So I guess I would put more effort into at the time I was like working at Etnies and I was like, I'm going to put more effort into this and the footwear thing, which ended up being way better because there was much more, you know, like I'm not being like, haha, the magazine died, but more of like editorial just has changed so much, but then footwear hasn't. And like, I think in that I was more in the footwear world, I was able to like meet other people, meet you, you know what I mean? Have more of a life working in that world, which, in this strange way, I guess the whole point of it is like, sometimes your dream goals aren't weirdly what's best for you. And so it's like, go for
that's
it.
what I was
you
just
have
going to mention too. It's like I'm not like, I'm like glad that it happened that way because I would still be at the door being like, can we like do something? And so like going through that process was like infuriating, but I'm like, I am living my dream to the fullest now. And like, that just wasn't my path.
Yeah. And then, you know, it was like, I guess, so yeah, that happened. And then it felt like we met right when, you know, all that happened and you got on Nike. Honestly, It was so funny because I feel like when I met you, you had just won this massive contest. You know what I mean? Like, oh, you have to meet the skater. Like, they're so fierce. Like, they just won this big contest. Like, they're on top of the world, sort of thing. It was very interesting to. It's been beautiful, but like interesting to see like you go from this moment, and it's like you almost were like, I won this thing, and then you just like dove into the trenches of this other thing.
Above all else, I was still frustrated that like it's like my only way of having success in this thing that I like really care about is to be good in competitions. And it's like I know that I'm trans. I know that I can't stand doing this, but it's my only choice. And so I yeah, sure I won SLS. I'm like who even cares about that? Like nobody remembers who like I don't care. I'm like I'm psyched cuz I got a bunch of money from it. Not as much as the guys got though, but whatever. There's all kinds of like you can just pick it apart all day, but it was still
You're like,
like
don't get me
I'm
started.
living
We'll be
a
here for
lie.
hours.
Like, oh, Lacey Baker. I'm like so backed into this corner. Like you saw me in
Yeah,
really, really tough mental and being like, I'm doing all this stuff. Like I'm living my like dream, but it's like as the wrong person. And at that
yeah,
point, I was like well aware of it. So like to continue that way, it was like I was just miserable. And then obviously like
mm,
fast forward like all of that came to a head like extremely like when the Olympics was happening because I was like on my way, you know, like all I remember like all through those years of like skating SLS and all that stuff, they're talking about like skating's going to be in the Olympics, like they might be in the Olympics, and I'm like, I guess I'm going there then, you
I
know,
guess
like I'm
an
not happy about it,
Olympic
but
athlete, right?
yeah, it was like, you know, and then it just came to a head, and I'm like, I literally can't do this like anymore. I
Yeah,
would rather just like I don't have to skate.
yeah,
You know, if it means I have to live this way, then I'm just not gonna do it.
right.
And I just was like going in and telling like my managers at Nike like I really don't want to do this and trying to like convince them that like I promise you something much more inspiring will come of this if I'm living my
Hmm.
truth than to like
Right.
compromise still. You know, like you get this is gonna be better for everybody and like they trusted me and it's like look at it now. It's like I have like the new board company on the way. Glue was a huge success for the time
Yeah.
that time period and inspiring. It was like really moving for people and like I ended up getting a pro shoe and like I feel like I probably wouldn't have gotten that shoe had I like done the Olympics.
Probably not. And
I
I
would
was
have
just
been
thinking like the
super
shoot,
unhappy.
yeah, the shoot we did when we went to the schoolyard. I remember like because it was kind of like I feel like I knew what was going on and I knew everyone at Nike and I just was like, it's not my place to say anything. And like we would talk about it, but it was like I could tell you were like really wrestling with stuff and like I didn't like it wasn't like I was like, no, let's like let him suffer and these are amazing pictures, but like the photos were so good. And so I felt like it was like this torturous circle a little bit where it was like you would reach this boiling point of not caring. And it was then when we'd be getting like the most amazing pictures. And I just remember like it wasn't smooth until the schoolyard. And I feel like you just didn't care. And you were like rolling around in the dirt and you were like covered in oil and just like skating this picnic table going so fast. And I was like, I feel like he wants to get hurt. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah, I
I
was like
feel like
something
he,
bad needs to happen so I can stop doing this.
yeah. And just was like, you know, it's just like when you're like, I'm so over it, I'm going to break the world. And like, but it also, I think was so freeing for you of like, it was almost like you were like, I'm so over it, I'm going to stop thinking. And
Yeah.
we got like such good stuff. And I just feel like at that time, every time there would be something that came up and you would hit a breaking point and you'd be like, I'm going to break the world. And then everything amazing would happen. And the Olympics were like this pot, like a kettle that was like boiling and boiling. And I knew you weren't going to go to the Olympics. Like it was just like, yeah, it was just kind of this weird matter of time where I'm like, he hates contests. This is like the contest. It was always when you would like make the decision. And I think it's always been where like I very much like empathize with that and like understand that where like sometimes you spend a lot of time being like I don't like this, and I don't like these people, or I don't like whatever. And then eventually you get to a point where you're like, I don't want this. And I understand that this is very...
Is like, and this has been like a repetitive thing happening throughout my skate career where it's like, okay, like if I want to skate and have the support of XYZ, then like there are some compromises that need to be made. But like for the greater good of it, you know, and like I have outside voices convincing me, and I'm like, okay, I can see your point. I can see how that's helpful. And then it's just like when that starts to like tilt, where it's like I'm this unhappy, then I reach a breaking point. And then the same thing with the Olympics, and it's like it's truly like in my gut, I'm like, I just don't think I fit that. But then I hear these outside, like, are you sure? Like, this is skateboarding history. Like, it's just one more year. And I'm like, I have been weighing that stuff out. And it's like, it feels like such an intense thing to walk away from. And then I just have to be with myself and be like, yeah, no, I'm not kidding. I'm actually leaving this.
Yeah. Yeah.
And like, anytime I make decisions like that, I'm just like, oh, like I should have just like trusted my gut in the beginning. But I do, like, I have like I don't know, like I feel like I'm flexible and like listen to like the entire picture before I'm just like no to stuff.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
no, but you just hit like a boiling point. Let's talk about Leo Popstar. We haven't talked about that. Who the F is Leo Popstar?
Leo Popstar is my music project. It's like a side project. I've been writing songs for a long time, playing music in the background. Like my family history, my dad was in bands and stuff, and my whole dad's side of the family is all super musical, so naturally I feel a drive to pursue that. And yeah, it's been fun. Like like there's a lot of moments I'm learning lately where it's like, why am I doing this? And I'm noticing now with the music stuff that it's like I get the most enjoyment out of it when I'm connecting with people. And so I'm at a place right now where I want to like make more connections with other musicians because it feels kind of lonely to do it by myself, honestly. And yeah, it's like it's like way more fulfilling to like work with somebody. It's like the same thing when we're like, if we're out shooting, like we're both have a goal in mind and we're able to connect on that. It's like when I'm working with my producer, it's like really moving and inspiring to be in the room with him. I practice as much as I can, but it's like it ebbs and flows because of like how busy I am with skating, plus like the lack of connection I have with music stuff. But specifically, I feel like I process a lot of grief through music. And it's happens to be really rooted in that because, you know, like I lost my dad young and he wasn't really ever around. And so there's just kind of this void that I'm like trying to fill with it, which is actually a stuck point that I just discovered. And so I'm working through that and hopefully can like, because there is a part of myself that does music for me, but then there's a part of myself that does music because I feel like I have to, because I like, otherwise I don't get this connection with my dad. And so I'm really wrestling with that right now, trying to, you know, work through those parts and like really harness the things that make me happy when I do music. So it's the same as like all the stuff we're talking about. I'm like in a phase with music right now where I'm like, do I want to do this? And then I'm like, yes, there's a part of me that really wants to do it, but I got to work through some other stuff. But I think it's a good time to figure it out because, you know, I always imagined music would come later. Like I could spend more time on it after skating stuff slows down. Like, but right now it's like I'm at the top of my career. So I want to focus on skating and then just like keep music, you know, steady in the background until I can focus on it more.
I think it's a beautiful connection. And yeah, I feel like a lot of people maybe are surprised that your dad was like a big musician. And I think that connection is so cool because I'm sure it's complicated and weird. But like what a fun way to, I guess, dive into that and connect with him and probably go crazy at times. But like, I think that's like a really cool, yeah, I don't know. I think it's like really cool. I'm sure it's heavy. But like,
yeah, there's a lot of grief in it at this moment. And there always has been. Because, I mean, if we're going to get like really real, it was like the last time I talked to him was on the phone and he was like, I can't wait to like teach you stuff on guitar. And then like the next thing I heard is he's dead. So like, there's this like super unfulfilled thing that I like. It's just like more like survival. As like I sit here and I wonder like, do I even want to do this? Because I'll like get inspired and then I'll come into my studio and like, and then I just get like super overwhelmed, like deeply overwhelmed to the point where it's like I don't actually pursue like whatever inspiration moment I had was. And then I'm like, what if I just like get rid of it all? And then like I just like can't imagine doing that. So I'm just in this middle space right now of like, what role is music gonna actually play in my life, and like what do I get out of it, and then pursue that more intentionally so that I have fulfillment.
How you talk about it like a lot in the doc. Your life's been crazy. There's been a lot of trauma in your childhood. Your father passed. You've had quite a like roller coaster. How do you like find peace, and how do you sort of find silence, and like how do you kind of find Leo time to kind of like center, if that makes sense? Like what's sort of your click out?
It's like number one, like a super like some version of like ego death, where every day it's like I am not in control of anything that I'm not in control of, and I can do what I can do, and I want to put all my eggs in the basket of like things that are fulfilling and like really put emphasis on those things. So like in the mornings, like every day I write a gratitude list, like every single day, making sure that I'm like slowing down to like appreciate those moments and let them like emotionally impact me, so that like I can move through the day with that energy of like I'm like grateful to be alive today, and then like just accepting everything as it is, like my mom is who she is and I love her, and my sister and my brothers and like my dad, that's what happened and this is who I am because of it. Like just really being at peace with like what's in my control is like my behavior and like how I choose to relate to the world, and outside of that there's not a lot I can do, and like I allow myself to feel whatever feelings I'm having. It's like just being like, wow, I feel like I'm really sad and like grieving today, and just be like, okay, like that's where I'm at, and it's okay, and things are still good, and I am still grateful to be alive, and just being at peace with everything like all at once, really really going towards the things that like naturally I would want to shy away from. Just really being with things as they are is kind of my best way of coping with, I don't know, being alive. And then, at the end of the day, it's like floating on a rock in space. So that always brings me peace.
Okay, one last question. After everything you've been through, do you still think of the skateboard as a toy, as play, or is it something sort of deeper than that?
Yeah, no, it's such a freeing, it brings me back to like a more simple place inside of me, where it's like when I'm skating, it's like I really just want to like figure something out and like have fun. And there were moments where, over the course of my career, where it's like, this is awful, why am I doing this? But after having this like come to Jesus moment of like, skating is still something that I fell in love with when I was like 2 years old, and like when I stay on that path, I enjoy it no matter what. So like, yeah, it's just, I feel like I'm free and like able to play and figure stuff out. It's like figuring out a puzzle that's like never going to end. That's what skating feels like to me.